I want to share a recent success story from two of my online English learning students, Chinese young teenagers whom I'll call Jing and Fang. They were preparing for the Cambridge B1 preliminary exam, what many of us call the PET or PET exam. We had just 3 months to get them ready. In the beginning, their mistakes were very familiar. For example, in the writing practice, Jing would write, "Hi, Miss Taylor," in a formal email instead of "Dear Miss Taylor." And words like desserts and deserts kept causing problems. Fang could use some impressive grammar, but her writing needed clearer paragraphs. In speaking, she relied on the word bad for describing almost everything, instead of using words like terrible, awful, dreadful, or horrible. And I remember thinking, they do understand many of these corrections, so why aren't the corrections sticking with them when they have to write or speak on their own? Well, what was the problem? The real challenge is memory recall, especially when you're teaching online. How do you help students remember feedback, use it independently, and improve their speaking habits in 90 days without spending every lesson correcting the same mistakes over and over again? With these two students, 3 things made the difference: memory, structure, and autonomy. Let's talk about the shift, or how they started to improve. When time is short, it is very tempting to move from one practice test to the next. More reading, another writing task, another speaking mock test. But of course, practice tests matter. And I found that if every lesson starts from 0, students can get a lot of practice without actually building on their previous skills and feedback. So I used a ChatGPT Project folder as one central place for each student's materials, recurring errors, lesson notes, and goals. The efficiency of ChatGPT was that it can capably review all the notes from the first lesson, which allowed me to keep track of the learning journey more consistently. Hi, I'm Marie Richards, and after over 14,000 online lessons in teaching English, I've learned that AI is most useful when it helps us notice patterns over time, not when it simply produces another worksheet. This is important. There's a basic learning principle here called scaffolding. Scaffolding theory teaches us that students make progress when the next task is slightly beyond what they can do already, with the right support. But the right support has to come from what happened in the last lesson. If Fang struggled to respond quickly in a speaking discussion on Tuesday, I don't want to give her a completely unrelated generic speaking task on Thursday. I want to build from that exact point of difficulty. So what did I do? First, I created a separate project in ChatGPT for each student. I uploaded their Cambridge B1 curriculum, the relevant speaking and writing lesson materials, my initial diagnosis of their skills at the beginning of the learning journey, and a topic vocabulary guide. I also used a rubric. That gave the AI useful context, but I decided what mattered most for each lesson. For speaking parts 3 and 4, we focused on small number of useful interaction phrases that can help them start speaking, such as, "Shall I start? What do you think? I'm not sure about that. That's a good point, but..." Then after each lesson, I made brief notes. Nothing elaborate, just the things I wanted to remember for the next time. And I uploaded my notes into ChatGPT. For Fang, I noted that she needed fast response drills. She had good ideas, but she needed to access language more quickly. For Jing, I noted that short shadowing practice helped her produce more accurate sentences, especially with subject-verb agreement. I want to ask you, online teachers, are there phrases you teach to help your English learners quickly begin their answers? Leave your answer in the comments below. For example, as an adult native English speaker, I know when I personally have to answer a substantive question, I often use a sequencing phrase like this. Let me give you 3 quick points. So what change did I notice? Over time, the lessons became more connected. Instead of simply giving them new tasks each lesson, I could ask the AI for the practice outline that recycled some of the students' own problem areas. I also wanted students to check their answers as an examiner would. The students began using self-check questions. Was my answer long enough? Did I give a reason? Did I use the right verb tense? Did I use one of our discussion starter phrases? When they began doing this check automatically using a rubric-like review checklist, that was the moment I knew something had shifted. They began to notice and explain their own mistakes before I pointed them out. After 3 months of twice-weekly 1-hour lessons, both Jing and Fang passed their Cambridge B1 exams, one with a B and one with a C grade. Of course, the project folder was not the reason they passed. They passed because they practiced diligently, took feedback seriously. They kept building automaticity around writing and speaking skills that I was asked to improve, which matched the rubric checklist. Another teacher worked with them on their reading and listening skills. Using AI to preserve their learning history helped me give more focused practice in a logical, scaffolded way. It meant I spent less time being a human grammar highlighter and more time doing what teachers do best: noticing, guiding, encouraging, and helping students become more independent learners. I also used AI to generate realistic images to match the images they would be asked to describe in the exam, which was extremely helpful and time-saving. I am most pleased at the automatic speaking skills they developed given their initial starting point. Now to finish off, if you teach English online, I'd love to know, what is the one correction your students understand in class but keep forgetting when they speak or write on their own? If you also teach business English, click here for other online teaching ideas from my over 14,000 hours of online teaching to English exam takers and those adults wanting to improve their business and professional English. Please subscribe and click the notification bell so you can be immediately notified of my next video in the series of tips from my over 14,000 hours of English online teaching. Share the videos with your other online English teachers. See you next time.